In this video, I'm going to cover my 4 tips to avoid over-optimization. We've all created great-looking back tests like this. You spent a lot of time on your trading strategy, and then when you move it to the out-of-sample or to the live market, what does it do? It crashes and burns. So the problem here arises when we over-optimize our system to the historical data. Unknown to us, our system begins to key into patterns within the noise instead of exploiting a true market edge. We're in the pattern recognition business when we're doing quantified trading. There are patterns out there that do exist where you can take advantage of them. However, when you over-optimize, what your system is doing is actually keying in on market noise. Now, let's go and hit those tips so we can crush over-optimization. All right, the first topic is future leak. This is insidious and most people fall prey. So let's go back to the beginning here. When we want to create a trading system, we're going to divide our market data into an in-sample data segment and an out-of-sample data segment. Pretty basic, but let's cover a few little points here which will help explain our future leak problem. First of all, your in-sample data segment should cover several different market regimes, okay? So this means bull market and bear market. This is to help ensure that your strategy is working in different market environments. So when you're developing your strategy, make sure it covers bull and bear markets. Your in-sample data segment should also contain over 100 trades. If it doesn't, you need to expand your in-sample data segment. Let's move to the out-of-sample, and that's very similar. Our out-of-sample data segment should cover several market regimes. That should be bull market, bear market, sideways market, but I know this isn't always possible. But do your best to try to include different market regimes in your out-of-sample. Your out-of-sample data segment should also contain a minimum of 60 trades. If it doesn't, you're going to have to collect more out-of-sample data. Now, getting on to our problem of future leak, this is one that most people fall prey to. So what am I talking about here? Let's say you built a trading system on your in-sample data and now you're excited to move it to the out-of-sample data to test it. Well, it doesn't turn out so great. Maybe what you discover is an additional rule will help improve the performance. So what did we just do? We took an idea from the out-of-sample data, which is the future, it's our unseen data, and then we moved it to make decisions about our trading logic on the in-sample data. This, my friend, is future leak. What we just did is nullified the out-of-sample. What people will often mistakenly do and wrongly do is then retest their new strategy with their new tweaks to make it better on the same out-of-sample data. Well, my friend, there is no more out-of-sample. You just ruined that, and we now have just one big in-sample data segment. I call this a future leak because we're taking information that we're not supposed to use for our development. In other words, something that's supposed to be the future and bringing it into our development process. So in this case, what do you do? Well, you either shelve the system and wait for new information and wait for new market data to collect, or you toss the strategy and move on to a different one. But watch this one. It is very insidious and it bites a lot of people. All right, tip number 2 is proper optimization. This has to deal with maybe you're doing a look back period for a moving average or some type of buy or sell threshold. So you're going to use TradeStation's optimization feature to analyze the different values. What I have for you here are a few tips to keep in mind. First of all, when you do your optimization, don't pick the best value. When optimizing a parameter, you do not want to pick the best value simply because that's a surefire way to lead to over-optimization. Instead, what you want to do is look for a stable region. Ideally, you want to find a cluster or a range of values where your system performs well. And what you also have to keep in mind, abandon if there are no stable regions. In this case, often the optimization will look choppy with drastic changes. So let's go look at an example. So here's a back test. So at the bottom we have 2 through 50, and let's just say that's a look back period for a moving average. And on the left hand side, or the y-axis, we have our net profit. Now notice there's many values here, right, that produce profitable results. So what I would do is don't pick the best value. I would pick somewhere in the middle. Just average those distances and pick a value in the middle. Do not pick the best value. And number 2, notice that there's a wide range of values here. Let's contrast that with a bad optimization. So what if we optimized and we saw this? Well, there's our best value. Okay, it's 4, whatever that is. That might be a threshold or a look back period. But look how quickly the one next to it, just to the right of it, it just falls dramatically, and all the remainder are negative. This is a sure sign that that value of 4 is overly optimized, and actually this parameter is screaming that it's not useful, this isn't viable. So if you optimize and see this, you're going to have to throw it out. This doesn't make sense at all. Here's a good one again. This is an actual example from a trading system I'm developing, and you can see, again, a wide range of values for this input, 6 through 40 in this case, or 6 through 46 in this case. They look great. They all produce very solid results. I would just pick a middle value and go with it. Now, if I optimized and saw this, I would never pick that value. This tells me that this is overly sensitive, that's overly optimized, and it's not going to work. So keep these tips in mind when you're optimizing. You need to know what to look for and what to avoid. Tip number 3, keep it simple. Simple is often better in this game. Keep the number of parameters and trading rules to as few as possible to accomplish the task. Introducing more trading rules increases the likelihood of over-optimizing the system to historical data. If you introduce a trading rule to the system, it must have significant positive impact on the trading results in order to justify keeping it. If the results are deemed mediocre, then throw out the new rule. So let's say we're building a system and we want to introduce some type of filter. Maybe it's a volatility filter. We go ahead and add that to our code and we run it through the back test on our in-sample data. And we're happy to see that the profit factor rises from 1.07 to 1.5. Also, we notice that the average profit per trade rises from $20 to $60. This is great. I would consider this a significant change. We have a significant rise in profit factor and the average profit per trade. Of course, this is subjective. You're going to have to determine what's significant or not. But in this example, I would say this is a significant change. Thus, I think the rule that we just added is important, and I would keep it. Now, let's say we went and added the same rule, but the profit factor only rose from 1.07 to 1.11, and the average profit per trade went from $20 to $22. To me, this isn't a significant change. I would be very tempted just to ignore this rule. Again, this is subjective, but I think it's very important in helping you reduce the number of rules you keep adding to your strategy. If you just keep adding rule after rule, getting that profit factor to tweak just a tiny bit more, you're probably curve fitting. We want to keep things simple, so if a rule does not significantly impact my performance, I'm going to leave it out. Finally, tip number 4, independent testing. Following this important step can go a long way in preventing you from developing a system that is overly optimized to the historical data. When developing a trading system, it's common to apply many different filters and stops to a system. For example, let's say you have a simple moving average crossover system. You then wish to test a trailing stop and a trend strength filter to filter your different trades. Okay, so the question becomes, how do you pick the values for each of these indicators? How do you optimize your system? We already know not to pick the best optimization, But when you have multiple items to optimize, in this case 3, how do you go about doing it? In my opinion, you should attempt to perform independent testing whenever possible. Now, what does that mean? Well, each new rule that we test must be done independent of the other rules. While this isn't always possible to completely do, it should be done whenever possible. First, let's start with a basic trading logic. This is a moving average crossover system. So, first find a reasonable value for the look-back period of the moving averages. This means looking at those values without the trailing stop or the trend strength filter. We want to isolate just the moving average look-back period. So run your optimization and find reasonable values. Next, I might test for a valid trailing stop. Find a reasonable value there using the TradeStation optimization feature. Next, I would test the threshold value of the trend strength filter. However, I would not have the trailing stop in my code. I want to independently test the trend strength filter. Do you see that? I'm not simply stacking new trading rules on top of the previous. I'm independently testing each filter. Each new rule that we test must be done independent of the other rules. This is done to avoid over-optimization and will help to maintain a robust system. This also allows me to see if a particular rule or filter has a strong impact on the performance of my system. Finally, what I would do is, once you've gone through all of your filters, you'd go and take the best performing rules, combine them into a final system, and then test its performance. So if you had 5 or 6 rules, you would do the same thing. Continue to test them independently, and maybe if you had 6 rules, only 3 of them really impacted the system, you would pick those 3. I think it's important that you understand this independent testing and do it whenever possible. This can go a long way to avoiding over-optimization. All right, that was my 4 best tips on doing optimization right. If you enjoyed this video, head over to my website, EasyLanguage Mastery, and download this free PDF, which goes over the rules we just covered. Simply follow the link in the description for this video and download your free copy on how to do optimization right. Following these rules will go a long way to helping make sure that your strategy will work on the live market. Join me and other EasyLanguage users over at EasyLanguage Mastery, where you can download free sample code, discover great trading ideas, and learn how to become a successful trader using EasyLanguage.